The biggest battle we will ever have to face is the battle between you and you. It's the battle of taking your mind to that limit and then breaking through. On the Mindful Experiment podcast, we will share concepts, universal laws, and interviewing individuals who have done just that, who have gone through the dark times and through those moments allowed their light to shine bright. I'm your host, Dr. Vic Manzo, and I want to thank you for listening to the podcast and taking this journey with me as we discover different avenues to break through those limits, expand your reality, and evolve into the person you desire to be. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mindful Experiment. I'm your host, Dr. Vic, and I am excited to have you here. This is going to be an interesting conversation. This is really about the experimentation of the mind and trying to break through limits and barriers to try to have a greater understanding of where can we go and how, if something happens with one, how can we make that more of a common in others? A couple days ago, I posted on Facebook about how tiredness, fatigue, is not true. It doesn't exist. It's just a psychological aspect. And the responses were interesting. I got to look at the comments and take a look, and I appreciated all the comments, and it's amazing to see the different perspectives. And the perspectives are all based upon the belief systems of what you believe. You take experiences and so forth, and you make it to say, well, this is what I've noticed, and this is what life is. But when you start to understand, and this happens in anything in your life, it's not just me talking about fatigue and what that is all about, but anything that happens in your life, when you look at it, it's the belief system of what you're putting on it that makes it real. You're the one who gives life to it. You're the one that sets the tone. You're the one that sets the rules, the laws, and everything within your universe. So if you think and believe that this is how it should be, you're right. If you think it's going to be totally something else and you believe that, you're right. There's no wrong. It's like Henry Ford once said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so with the post, what I was trying to explain is that it's all psychological. And here's why. You know, I have people talk about nutrition and so forth, that poor nutrition causes fatigue and all this. And I kept saying it's all psychological. And some people look at mind over matter and those types of things. And it's a little bit more deeper than that because we're looking at it from a neurological standpoint. But just to give you a couple of examples. Some people have said it could be physical fatigue, that exists. A muscle cannot perform all day long. And I totally agree with that. I never said it couldn't. Now imagine you do squats and you do a heavy weight, and normally you can only do about 15 reps, and you push to 20 and your legs are giving out. They're fatiguing, right? And you push and push and push until the thing you basically almost gave out. And then you get back up and you're experiencing physical fatigue. But let's say there was an emergency that happened that was life-threatening. Would you have the energy to run and sprint as fast as you can? Would you have the energy to all of a sudden turn on that deeper layer and be able to go and survive? Yeah. I mean, there's stories of 150-pound women, 140-pound woman whose child is in danger. And when the last second, when everything was coming to the max climax of the whole entire situation, they would lift the car to save their child. How is that possible? How does that happen? How can the body do that in some way or form? So again, if you have extreme physical exhaustion from doing some sort of a workout, performance, sprinting, and so forth, if there happened to be an emergency, you would find the energy and everything to take on and sprint and do what you have to do to survive. So my question then is, why does that happen? What's the purpose behind it? How do we tap into the mind to be able to do that more on a daily basis to help ourselves expand and grow and evolve? Now, I'm not saying to see someone run for hours and hours and days at a time. I'm not looking at that perspective and thinking that should be the way it should be all the time. I'm just saying when we're tapping to our unlimited potential, how can we create that? And in this podcast, I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. I don't know how to do that. I've been in times in my life where I have done things where I was exhausted, I was fatigued, and then all of a sudden I'd shift my focus, and all of a sudden I would have massive energy to go ahead and continue doing what I was doing. It's just one of those things that it constantly we're able to do as long as you can break through that barrier. Another thing, fatigue. Some people say, well, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so I'm tired. Again, that's a mindset. How many people I've heard say, I need 8 hours of sleep, 9 hours of sleep. But when they're going to travel and fly, they sleep on 3-4 hours and they can go through the whole entire day perfectly fine, not even tired. Because they're excited through the day, through the travels, what they're doing, and so forth. How's that possible? Another one. Some people said it's diet and so forth. Well, there are people who don't eat. There's people who live off energy. And I want to break this down a little bit. I'm going to get a little metaphysical here. When you look at food and everything that exists in this world, it's all energy. Your body needs energy. And I'm not talking ATP, the chemical that is created from the mitochondrial aspects of the cellular energy that creates all the energy for our body to keep moving forward that you can find in all living things. That's not the type of energy what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about frequency, vibration, this energy aspect. A vibrational frequency. And so when you look at it from that level, food has a vibration. It has a frequency. When you take that in, it goes and gives into the body, and the body takes it, utilizes that vibrational frequency to give it more life so that you continue moving forward. Okay? That is the bare bone basics as of right now of what food is and anything. But guess what? Air has a vibrational frequency. And there are people in this world, and it's starting to grow more and more, who live off air. That's right. There is a man in India who hasn't eaten in 70 years. And suppose he hasn't drank water, which I kind of question that. But still to this day, a man who was able to do that. Now, I'm not advocating this whatsoever. Please do not take this at any health advice whatsoever. I'm not advocating that don't eat and don't drink and try to be these types of people. There are people who have seriously been harmed, who tried to do that, and there are people who have almost died because of that. So that is not what I'm advocating here. The whole main concept of me sharing this story with you is, again, tap into deeper levels, break the pyramid of what we think is, and try to see what can be new. So there's people out there who can do these things, and they've been, and you can Google it. You'll see the man. There's a video of him talking about it. And so when you look at life and the concepts of it, okay, so if food is what gives you energy and doesn't give you energy and keeps you not being fatigued, then how is it people who don't eat get energy? As I'm speaking right now doing this podcast, the longest fast I've ever done in a water fast was 7 days. I've done juice fasting for over 2 weeks, but I've never gone longer than 7 days in a fast. My body I don't want to over push, but here's the thing. I'm not consuming anything except water, but yet my body and my energy will flow to higher levels. My thinking gets clearer. My body feels better. I have more energy. I feel great, and everything gets maximized. My workouts get deeper. I'm able to push more weight, go deeper into my workouts, and do more. How's that possible when I haven't put energy in my body in 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and I still have energy and I'm still rocking throughout the day? Again, when we start to understand everything starts from the mind, fatigue can never exist. I'll tell you, back in the day when my practice wasn't as in high demand like it is now, I remember the days where we wouldn't have a patient come in for an hour. And at the end of those days, I'd be drained. I'd be exhausted. But when I'm in high demand, where all of a sudden I'm adjusting and for 3 hours straight, I come out of those rooms and I go home on fire. Why is that? How is it that I can be working physically, just flying through, adjusting tons of patients for a few hours straight, but then I can see 20% of that and I'd be exhausted at the end of the day? What I'm looking at is the mind. Not what exists in the brain. We know that it doesn't exist in the brain. The actual mind of the spiritual aspect of who you are. Everything comes from mind. And how you see things with your mind is going to dictate your reality and your experience. There are people out there who eat healthy because their mindset is, if I don't eat healthy, I'll get disease. So what do you think they're creating in their life, even though they are eating healthy? And it could be a vegan diet, it could be a vegetarian, it could be a keto, paleo, the blueprint, the Whole30. You can keep going on with diets, doesn't matter. If your mindset's seeing food in a way where if I don't do this, then I'm going to have this type of mindset, you're creating what you're trying to avoid because you're seeing something as harm. I know people out there that can see food, see it with their mind and what they view it as, and no matter what they're eating could be beneficial. There are gurus out there who can take a toxin, put it in their body, which is known to kill you, and they can shift their perspective of it, and it doesn't harm them whatsoever. How is that possible? It's time as we as humans start to get out of our box and start seeing things from a different perspective. Not be so constructed to think that, oh, well, there's good and bad and this and that. It all is what you think it is. That's the whole part of the mindful experiment. Testing your mind and your mindset to see exactly what can you alter and shift. What can you change in your life? Right? Now, I'm not saying, again, disclaimer here, I am not saying go try and take an endotoxin or something that's going to harm you drastically and then see if you can shift it. No, sir. Do not take that advice. I am not sharing that. The thing I'm just trying to inspire is to see that, what are the constructs I'm living by? And how much have I accepted it to be what it is? And how can I change that to be something different? Look at your life. What are you doing in your life that you think this is how it should be or what it should be like, instead of creating your own path of what you want it to be? And this goes through everything, parenting and so much more. I know individuals who don't get a lot of sleep because of lifestyle and what they have going on in their life, but every day they're up ready to fire and get going because they're passionate. There have been individuals who barely even slept for days at a time. There are studies that have been done that they did this, and they kept an individual interested, inspired, curious, and so much more, and they never got fatigued. Never got fatigued. So when we look at fatigue then, if you're saying, wait a minute, these people were interested, they were inspired, and so forth, and they never got tired, that doesn't make sense. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk stated himself. He looked at, as people asked, how do you never take a break? How much do you go all the time? 18 hours, so much more. How do you push so much? And he said it was because he's grateful and so much more, but I take it and look at that from passion. He's interested, he's inspired, he's curious. There's no boredom there. It's just inspired. The moment fatigue kicks in is the moment you allow boredom to kick into your life, the moment you allow frustration, resentment, anxiety, things of your past, or things of looking at things in a way of what it is you don't want them to be. That you're not accepting what is, you're not being in the present moment. That is my personal opinion of what I think fatigue is. Because I've looked over my life in the last 10 plus years, and what I've seen is that the most times I was exhausted, I was brain dead, I was overwhelmed, I had no creativity, was the time that I was looking at my past or looking at where things were and focusing on the lack of what I had rather than the gratitude and appreciation. Because I truly believe, and I know neurologically, if you're in a state of gratitude, you can't be in a state of anger, frustration, and resentment. You can't have anxiety or anxiousness or anything. Gratitude puts you in the present moment. Gratitude is what helps you center yourself. And that energy, when you tap into that vibration, is going to inspire you. It's going to create more passion. And it's going to make you create some inspiration to keep moving forward. And so that no matter what you're doing, you don't fatigue out. You don't get tired. Tired and fatigue is only but it exists within the mind. As I look at the brain, you can look at the brain and does the brain ever sleep? Does the brain ever rest? And some people might say, wow, when you're sleeping, the brain gets a chance to rest. But in our reality, the brain actually works more when you're sleeping. The brain never rests. It never stops. It is always working. So why is it that we will get fatigued? How do we look at physical life and be able to maximize it without harming our health? How can we take fatigue and look at it from a different perspective? So as I end the podcast today, I want to share a couple things to help you challenge and see how you can break a paradigm. I want you to look at sleep. And before you go to bed, there was a study done, and I've seen it. I've done it myself, where you have to sleep X amount of hours. But what I would recommend to do is, say you're going to go to sleep for 5 hours, but be excited about waking up. Plan something as soon as you wake up that you're going to do that's going to get you happy, inspired, and want to just be like excited for that day. And I guarantee if you do that truly, you will wake up that morning energized. You will be ready to go immediately. The thing is, our mind, we're so not in the present moment in life anymore. And what we end up doing is we focus so much on our day-to-day, our routines that we do constantly day in and day out. And we start to mute life and not give it as much color. And this is where I truly believe. You look at children, they have tons of energy. There are times where they get tired. I'm not saying they don't. But overall, what the thing is you look at your life and you just focus on pushing forward. You always have to make sure that, shift your mindset and how you view things, and it'll start to transform. You will find that power. You will find that energy, and you won't let fatigue get to you. Don't get me wrong. I am the preacher and sharer in my podcast and everything I do about the hustle and grind is not healthy. That is not designed. That's not what you need to do. I am all about resting when you need to and driving hardcore when you have to. But at the same token, I always focus more on the rest than I do the work, because when you rest properly, you maximize your performance. But what if you can just maximize your performance with your mind? I don't know. I don't know at all. But I do know that this is going to be the door to when we start tapping into more in the future. That's why you see things called nootropics. These are supplements and so forth that can help maximize mind to create that limitless mind where you can expose yourself to more and more percentages to do more. And maybe near in the future we'll be able to. But I think it's going to come from us trying and looking at things from different perspectives, creating an intention, because through intention, that's where everything starts from. And if you have an intention of, hey, I don't care how tired I am, I'm going to get the work done. I used to see my dad work hours upon hours, 12, 16 hours, laying carpet, doing the work, go to bed, 5 hours of sleep, get up the next morning, go for another 15, 16. Go back to sleep, 5 hours, get up the next morning, go for another 15, 16. I've seen him do it. I was there with him. I don't know where he got the energy from. I don't know how he kept moving forward. He must have had a certain mindset to where he was just like, I can't get fatigued, I can't get tired. There's no option. And I truly believe if you have no options to sleep, if you have no options to rest, if you have no options to do whatever you have, you're going to figure out a way to make it work. And that's the challenge I'm challenging you with, is looking at life. Where is it you're comfortable with? Where is it you're getting fatigued, burned out with? And how do you shift your perspective to not be burned out anymore? How can you not be fatigued anymore? And how can you take your life to that next level? That's my two thoughts. I know it's a little bit of a ramble today. It was something that I've been thinking about. And I truly believe that, there is times where, fatigue, it is really just psychological. It is something just within the mind. And you can break that pattern if you just look at things from a different perspective. Not thinking you need to do X, Y, and Z in order to have this, but more important, but differently, to just look at your life and say, well, what if there is something different? And what if you go down that road and it is? Who knows? The most dangerous thing you can ever say in your life is I know, because you stop growing and you limit yourself. So that's why I always have an open mind. No matter what I read, I always look at things, and I always challenge things, test them out, and see what works for me. And that's what I'm asking you to do in this podcast. This may sound crazy. It may sound bizarre. You may go, this guy's freaking crazy. But you know what, though? Take it with a grain of salt. But apply some things into your life. Look at where, if you do get tired or you're exhausted or you're burnt out from something, it may be work, life, whatever it may be, or stress in a marriage, stress in a relationship, stress in life, stress with work, stress with friends, family, whatever it is, and you're just like, I'm burnt out, can't deal with that. Change the script, change the story, really change the script and the story from within. Believe in that script and story that you're stating, and see what happens.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. For past shows, please visit www.empoweryourreality.com. I hope this show inspired you and added to your life to help you on the journey to rediscover who you really are. To connect with us on Facebook, please visit www.facebook.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. Check us out on Twitter. The handle is Dr. Vic21. Follow us on Instagram, www.instagram.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. If you were inspired by the podcast, pay it forward by sharing it with someone who you know can benefit from it. Thank you again for listening to the Mindful Experiment podcast, sharing paths to help you rediscover your infinite potential.